has only 4 words. This one's for John.
This one's for Pat.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 6 of Interviewing Broncos Country. Really excited to bring our new guest on. His name is Rob. Thanks for being here, Rob.
No, it's my pleasure.
So we were talking a little bit backstage just now, but you were about to tell me how you became a Broncos fan, which is always my first question because I find it so interesting. Sure. We've interviewed people from the Philippines, not from the Philippines, but they were in the Philippines. We did somebody that was somewhere else. I can't remember. And we're doing, Australia. That's where it was.
Okay.
And we're doing somebody from New Zealand. So Bronco fans just all around the world. So that's, to me, the most exciting question is, how did you become a Broncos fan, and did you grow up in Colorado?
I did. I am a native Coloradan, the only one in my entire family tree. My dad was a football fan. When I was a little kid, in about 1974, he would watch games, and I figured I'd just sit there with him and watch, and just so I could have some time with my dad. Then come 1976, one of his coworkers split up from his wife, and he had season tickets, so he gave them to us. It was only 4 seats. But we had to buy another one because there were 5 of us. And from there, John Ralston was the coach on the 76 team. He was the first Broncos coach that actually had a winning record. He resigned at the end of the 76 season, and they brought in Red Miller as a head coach and traded with the New York Giants for Craig Morton. And that season was just the 77 season was unbelievable. We destroyed the Raiders in the AFC Championship game, which of course is a huge rival. And at the end of the game, it was the way we did it. There were like 3 or 4 different families that we would all tailgate together. We go to the stadium probably around 7:00 in the morning, start making food and all that stuff, throwing footballs around. And one of the families is the guy who's been my best friend for pretty much my entire life. So the cool thing for us is our seats were in the north stands at the very top row. So, you're seeing the north stand, goes north and south. You could see every play develop from our seats, and it was ridiculous. We also, the people that sat next to us were the people that built the Eisenhower Tunnel in Colorado. Struck up a great friendship with them. One guy, Harold, only my mom could sit next to him because she could calm him down, because he just would swear and curse and all that, all the time. So at the end of the championship game, we went down to the field. And we took a piece of turf after we won the AFC Championship game in 77. My friend, he actually put his in a bag and kept it. I think he still has it. Ours, we just kind of threw it out in the lawn, and then it just grew over.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an amazing childhood for me. Because in 76, I was 9 years old. And going to every single Broncos game, home game from 76 to 97, was just a great way to grow up. And what happened is my sister took over the season tickets, and she did not renew for the 97 season, which really, in hindsight, really made her angry because that was the year we won our first Super Bowl. So she just needed to wait one more year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's like, was she cursed the 1 year? The one year
she just didn't want to renew them because she didn't think we were going to go anywhere, and obviously she was wrong. So
well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I will say, like, having Broncos season tickets would be like, to say a bucket list item for me is an understatement. Like it would be just what I feel like I've been missing my whole life. You know, I go to as many games as I can, but when I watch movies like Fever Pitch, where I see these like groups of people, because if you just buy a random ticket, and I've been to 5 or 6 Bronco games, I've only gone with myself. I haven't had anybody to go with. So when you grab one of those tickets, you just kind of get thrown into a group. You don't really know who it's going to be, but when you have season tickets, you can kind of build these relationships with the people that built the tunnels and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's our entire section. We all knew everybody,
man,
because we all had this season tickets for decades, and I got to tell you, there's no better way to grow up when you're a kid than going to a Bronco games every Sunday, and getting to go to the playoff games and the championship game, and my love for the Broncos obviously is very deep because of the season tickets, but they also had a fan club called the Denver Broncos Quarterback Club back in the 70s and early 80s. And my dad was the president one year of the quarterback club. So we went to a luncheon, it was shown on TV and all that stuff. And of course, everybody's wearing Broncos gear. And I got to meet people like Lyle Alzado, Randy Gradishar, Louis Wright, the old school Orange Crush defense, that it just was, these guys were larger than life and my heroes and everything. And it is something I will never, ever, ever forget.
Yeah. That would be like equivalent for me as a child to see Von Miller.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I would have been totally starstruck.
I'll bet.
Yeah. Oh man. I guess I started remembering football games around the year 2001. I was born in 1994, and it's funny because you would think like, oh, you jumped on the John Elway bandwagon. It's like, no, not consciously, because by the time I picked the Broncos, because I was born in Wisconsin and I was raised in Florida, but I have this whole story of how I became a fan. I basically just picked the Broncos because we were playing at recess and the other kids were the Packers, so we couldn't be the Packers and we didn't know who else to pick. So me and my friend Alex went and we laid out all the football books, and something happened when we opened the Broncos book. To this day, him and I have never missed a football game. And it's hard to just choose your passions. I always say your passions kind of choose you. So something I believe magical happened with the Denver Broncos when I was younger. But the first jersey I wore wasn't a John Elway jersey. It was a Brian Griese jersey. That was I think he wore number 13, if I'm not mistaken. But it wasn't until Manning where I saw Jake Plummer in 2004-05 have some success. I think we went 13-3 and beat the Patriots. Were you at that game?
I was. Yes, I was.
Wow. So you saw the Champ Bailey interception, and then he started walking, and then the fumble touchback.
Yes.
Wow. What was that play like in person?
Oh, it was unreal. Honestly, it was it was the weirdest thing I ever saw in a football game. Honestly.
Yeah.
So it that goes ways back, and I'm old, so it I don't have a whole lot of recollection of it, but I do remember the Plummer years fondly, because Jake's a really cool guy.
Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, he is awesome. So for me, my first, I think, jersey was Floyd Little way back in the day. It was like the year before he retired. And it was great that he finally got the Hall of Fame, because he deserved it, because he was a hell of a running back. But just the different players you see over the years, from Craig Morton to all the way to Peyton Manning. I mean, we've had some good quarterback play. We've had bad quarterback play. And of course, what's happened the last few years has just been heart-wrenching, because they're so bad. But hopefully, Peyton will turn it around. And I'm really glad they drafted Bo Nix, because that's who I wanted them to get.
Really? Okay, so we'll talk about that. There was one other thing. So the season tickets, I'm just really interested in this whole thing, because I know that I think there's a 50-year waiting list for season tickets. So I don't know if it's ever going to be possible, because I'm just now getting to the age where I can afford it, but in 50 years I'll be 80. So a season ticket's one of those things where if you don't renew it for 1 year, you go to the back of that 50-year waiting list.
I think so. I'm not entirely sure.
Would you ever be interested in doing that again, or do you consider that like that chapter of your life over?
I'm at the age where I'm okay just watching them on TV.
Yeah, I always really enjoy watching on TV as well. Your bathroom's right there. There's no lines. But if it's a very special game, I want to be there. Like when Russ went to Seattle, I went to that game. I was stationed in Washington State at the time, so I was like, "There's no way I'm missing that game." And some of Manning's playoff games, I was a flight attendant at the time, and I would fly to Denver and go to those games. I remember during the Super Bowl, I flew to Denver just so I could be in the city in case they won the Super Bowl, which they did, and it was a party. It was
mayhem,
crazy.
Sure.
But yeah. Man, that's really interesting. You're the first person that I've had on that has had season tickets, and to think that interception, Champ Bailey, in that game, that's one of the pivotal moments of my childhood, where I remember I couldn't sleep that night because I was so happy that they won that game. And I was just, man, I don't know if I'll ever be that happy again. Like, it was just so pure. And to think that all these years later, I'm talking to somebody that was there is actually really mind blowing. So I'm really, really enjoying this. So yeah, you're right. The last 10 years have been a little bit difficult, and kind of transitioning to Sean Payton drafting his guy. I'm curious to know what you think about Bo Nix, but also what you thought about Russell Wilson, because it seemed like our fan base became somewhat divided with the way Sean was treating Russ. I don't have an issue with it. I'll just say that off the bat. I don't think Russ and Sean were a good fit. I don't think it was going to ever work out. So I'm happy that we just ripped the Band-Aid off. But I'm curious to know, how you feel about that. And then Bo Nix, I guess you had him as one of the highest quarterback grades of this class.
Yeah, I did. He was okay at Auburn, but he just lit it up at Oregon. Set a record for the best completion percentage, 40 touchdowns, 33 interceptions. I mean, that is a guy that knows what he's doing. So I'm really excited to see him play.
Yeah,
and
I what do you think about the whole orphan dogs thing? Like, the Sean Payton came out and he said that our quarterbacks are all orphan dogs, talking about Bo Nix, Jared Stidham, and Zach Wilson. Is Bo Nix the starter week 1, in your opinion?
I'm going to say yeah. Zach Wilson, I mean, Jared Stidham, he played football at the college I went to, at Baylor University. Loved him. He was awesome. dude was just killer. And then the whole thing at Baylor blew up, and he went to Auburn and didn't do all that well. And Stidham did have 2 starts last year, and it was just kind of. But I think, yeah, and from everything I've seen and read about Zach Wilson, the guy just can't play. So I'm pretty confident that Nix will be the starter week 1.
Yeah, I would say that too, especially Sean, how high he felt about Bo Nix. It would be a little strange if Zach Wilson was the guy. And then there's plenty of time for, it's possible that maybe even in OTAs, Jared Stidham's a little bit ahead of everybody because it's his second year in Sean's system. But by the time preseason comes around, I think the Bo Nix will be able to close that gap. And if it's even close, you got to go with the guy you drafted at 12. You know,
especially since a lot of people thought he was going to go late first, early second.
Yeah. So yeah. And were you surprised that he was picked at 12? Because there was a lot of talk about moving back.
The thing is if we move back, who knows if we could have gotten him.
Right.
And I also saw an article that about JJ McCarthy, that Peyton was really high on him, but it was all just yeah, exactly. His guy was Bo Nix from the beginning. And I'm glad, because I never even saw McCarthy play, and I don't really know anything about him, but good for Minnesota, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people felt the same way. Like, okay, if this is really how Sean Payton felt, there's no way Payton would be saying it on national TV. So it did feel like a little bit intentional, but it worked because I think you still had Minnesota trade up and make that draft. And Atlanta picking Penix, that was really surprising.
Yeah, especially since Kirk Cousins went to Atlanta.
Right. Yeah, they're the first team to ever add like a 6-time Pro Bowler and then draft a quarterback in the same offseason. I saw something about that. Yeah. So, so you went to every Bronco game for about a decade. You said 1977. Oh no, 2 decades.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 1977 to like 1997, basically.
Yes. It was 22 seasons that we had them.
And it was all in the old Mile High Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask a little bit about that because I don't know too much about that stadium. It was a little bit before my time, but I know that the NFL Network did the top 10 home field advantages in the NFL, and number 1 was Lambeau, number 2 was Mile High. And I can even remember the guy saying it. He goes, the best home field advantage was Mile High. And then they kind of talk about how I've been to the new place, the new one. It's not Mile High. It's so. I think I even saw people with sledgehammers banging their sledgehammers like on metal pavement. I just wanted to know, like, what was it like being in that stadium versus the new stadium that Invesco Field Sports Authority. It's changed its names quite a bit, but their current stadium. What would you say is like the major differences between those two?
I would say that the old Mile High Stadium was more intimate, because you're jamming 75,000 people into a very small stadium. Also because the floors were all metal, and you could really make a lot of noise. And also there was behind us, went up because we had the highest seats in the house, and then we'd start just banging on the walls behind us to just make as much noise as we could, especially when the other team was on offense.
I know now we smacked the seats in front of us.
Yeah, I haven't even been in the new stadium yet.
Do you feel like you want to go at some point or not really?
I would. It wouldn't be the same as it was when we had the season tickets with all the different groups that we hung out with, and it was a 12-hour day.
Yeah.
Get there and make food and eat and all that, and throw the football around, and then pack up eventually and go. And it just was, like I said, a 12-hour day.
Yeah, I think that's been the hardest part for me going, as like not knowing anybody, is that I if I ever got into like a Broncos family where it was like every Sunday, this person's bringing this person's bringing that, you get into like a system and it's organized, and that would just be the ultimate dream. And I could understand, like, if I had that and then I didn't anymore, I wouldn't necessarily want to go to a game. I could see how that might be such a great experience that kind of ruins.
It was. And the funny thing is none of my kids like football.
Really?
Yeah. My wife and I, we both absolutely love football. My kids could care less.
It just never got into it. Just never became a passion.
Nope. No. My oldest likes hockey a lot.
Okay.
And baseball, but yeah, no football.
Is he Avalanche? She. Sorry. Is she an Avalanche fan?
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so still like Colorado sports.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I said earlier you can't pick your passions. They pick you. So I was just curious, what was your maybe all-time favorite moment in those 20 years of going to those games?
Beating the Raiders in the 77 AFC Championship game. That was because the Raiders had our number for years. And then getting to the point where we prevented them from going to the Super Bowl, that was the best. I mean, that game, we stayed at the stadium parking lots probably until 10 o'clock that night. And I got called out of school the next day. So yeah, that was just one that's the one I remember the most.
That was the 1977 and that AFC Championship?
Yep.
Okay. I like to put little timestamps in the video, so that's really cool. Did you see the Broncos' new uniforms?
Yeah.
I was curious to know what your thoughts and opinions were on it. If you like the direction that the ownership group went, a lot of people wanted the throwback uniforms, but the people that I've interviewed made great points. One person said maybe they look at the Orange Crush uniforms like, those are sacred. We can't play with those every Sunday. Also, like trying to create like something new instead of going backwards to the old. But I've seen opinions really kind of all over the place. When I first saw the uniforms, I'm not gonna lie, I did not get super excited. It was not like, oh, those are the greatest things I've ever seen. I think that there's plenty teams that have upgraded their uniforms that really crushed it, like the Texans, the Jets, even the Giants bringing back their retro, like red and blue. I just was not a huge fan of the Broncos uniforms, but it's not going to stop me. Nothing could stop me from watching games. It's just some people, I think they get defensive, like, okay, you don't like the uniforms, or you don't have to talk about it. And it's like, look, there's nothing that could change my passion. I'm a little disappointed. That's all.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and there were a couple that I thought looked pretty good. The blue on blue with the white helmets. I thought that looked good, but the one with the orange, and I have it right here. I was gonna pull it up real quick.
Okay.
It's just so the people watching later can see it as well. And here we go. Share. All right, so here are what they'll look like. Let me get this red. There we go. So this blue on blue, this one wearing, I guess the first one wearing a 24 jersey. I like this with the white helmet. The one next to it, that's nice too. The one on the far right looks like, and when you have a video game and they just give you a fake uniform because you haven't earned a good one.
Yeah.
It looks like it needs to be customized still. It looks weird. Looks like a Browns jersey almost.
Kind of, yeah. It is a little different. I think I do like the orange pants. I think that's pretty cool. But of course, I got to go with the throwbacks, the 77.
Oh yeah.
Because they're iconic, and especially including the helmets. I like the old helmets more than I like the new ones.
Would you have been happy if they went back to these?
Yeah, that's what I grew up with.
Yeah. It's funny because I interviewed somebody that grew up with those, and his opinion though was, he's like, people are nostalgic for a time they didn't even live through, and he's really happy about them going towards the new. But I've also talked to fans that are older that grew up with those that wanted to go back to them. So totally different opinions. And we got Jinja. He's one of our fans of the channel. He says he does like them. And he also said Peyton Manning was the first jersey that he had. He was a freshman in high school when we won it. He had a bad snowstorm and had a week straight off school. My dad and my uncles took me to the square to see the parade. It was wild. That's awesome. Great time. Did you see the schedule get released by any chance yet?
I did. I haven't really poured through it yet, but.
Okay. Well, the week 1, they're going back to Seattle to play the Seahawks in Seattle. So that's going to be a tough environment. And then week 2, the Steelers are coming to Denver, and that will be their home opening game with Russell Wilson being the quarterback of the Steelers. And that's a really good defense. And then Tampa, who's, on the up and up right now with Baker Mayfield, and then a trip to New York to play the Jets. And we're hearing that Denver's going to stay in the East Coast. So they're not going to go Tampa back to Denver, back to, New Jersey. They're going to find somewhere to practice on the East Coast. But that's a pretty tough start to the season, I'd say, right?
It is. And I got to say, with Baker Mayfield, it's good to see that he's finally doing well.
Yeah.
And, instead of, who'd want to play for the Browns? But anyway, so, that goes back to the Elway Kosar rivalry also. But good for Baker Mayfield. I hated him because he was at Oklahoma and that was a rival of my school. But I'm glad to see he's doing well in the pros.
What was your school again?
I went to Baylor University.
Oh, Baylor. Okay, that's where RG3 went.
Yes.
Yeah, my dad was. I forget what it was called. I was in the Navy, but I guess the Army. In the Navy, we call it a Navy exchange. It's like a ginormous Walmart, and I guess the Army has their own version of that. And my dad was the project manager on completing it in Waco. So I went out there. My dad lived there for like a year and a half, 2 years. And I loved Waco. I thought it was really cool. And he would go to the Baylor games too.
Yeah, when I was there, Waco was a dump.
Yeah. Isn't there like a serial killer from there?
Yeah, there was. I actually read the book about it. It was Chip and Joanna Gaines that, with Fixer Upper that turned Waco around. And it's now basically a destination.
Yeah.
Trip. And
it was like country, right?
Yeah.
And it's what, like 2 hours from Dallas?
Yeah, about that.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember flying out of Waco. We drove from Florida to Waco, but when I flew back by myself, I went to the tiniest airport I've ever been in, and that was the Waco airport. Yep, and then I had to fly to Dallas to get to Jacksonville.
Yeah, Waco is about halfway between Dallas and Austin.
Okay, yeah. And Austin's really become a huge destination as well.
Oh, yeah.
How come you never gravitated towards any of the Texas teams? I guess, well, you grew up as a Broncos fan, so that explains that. Did you ever want to go to college in Colorado?
My parents said I couldn't.
Okay.
They wanted me to explore the world.
That's cool.
and I had applied to 8 different colleges. I got into all of them.
Wow.
But my uncle, who was a colonel in the Marine Corps, he was one that suggested it to me. And so my mom went nuts over that. It's like, well, what if I don't care what school you go to, but you're going to Baylor because my brother said so. Yeah,
That's
basically.
But did you enjoyed it over there?
Yes and no. It was culture shock because I'd never been to Texas before, and the accents was a little weird. And living in Colorado for so long, the humidity down there just absolutely destroyed me.
Yeah.
I was not used to that at all, even though my grandparents lived in Kansas, but Texas's humidity was way worse than Kansas.
Yeah.
But I made a lot of friends there. Still keep in touch with some of them. One part, my former roommate and best friend at school was murdered in Waco by his strange wife, that they were never able to pin it on her,
Right.
because they, he was going to get custody of the kids. So apparently, from what I've seen, she paid somebody to kill him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Man, and I thought my divorce I went through was toxic. That sounds even the next level. Wow.
Yeah. It was indescribable.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Did you ever get to see, I'm sure you did, like Pat Bowlen in person many times, like operating on the sideline, walking around? I just, I always knew who Pat Bowlen was, but it looked like when he was a lot younger and he had a lot more energy, he was a lot more involved with the team.
Yep.
What was that like, in those 20 years of going to the games, and what kind of role did Pat Bowlen play in a typical Sunday?
Well, when Pat Bowlen bought the team, none of us really knew who he was. We just knew that he was rich. But I think so far, he's the best owner we've ever had. And it's just, it was devastating that he got Alzheimer's and eventually passed away. And that's kind of why the team went kind of downhill for a while after that, especially when the trust was running the team, which was just a joke. But
Right.
I'm excited about the Walton Penner group. They're not afraid of spending money, on whether on the stadium. I mean, paying $400,000 for one game of turf on the last game of the season last year, that tells me that they are not holding back at all.
Right. People bring that up a lot, and not to push back or anything, but didn't they kept that grass for more than just that one game?
Yeah.
Like that's their forever grass now.
Yeah.
But still, the fact
Yeah.
that they did it week 18 was weird.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, and the plans that they have for the training complex that they're spending a lot of money on is just, I mean, they're spending their money the right way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Trying to make the team and the facilities better. And that's always welcome, because that's how, teams can win.
Right.
If they have a dedicated ownership group.
Free agents.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was part of the reasoning when they said, like, it's a big, players. I think it was Todd Davis. He was our linebacker during Super Bowl 50.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the podcast with Zach Stevens on DNVR. And Zach Stevens is one of the reporters that gets to talk to Sean Payton after the game. And he had him on, and he did a great segment on just explaining when players, are choosing which team they're going to sign with during the offseason. facilities play a big role in that. In what kind of resources do they have? And from what I've seen, like this is going to be the state of an art facility. Is that how you say that? State of an art? That sounds wrong right now.
State of the art. Yeah.
State of the art. Thank you. State of the art.
You're welcome.
And I think that's great. And they said, like, we're not going to tear down the stadium just because we have, FU money. We're not going to just tear it down for the sake of tearing it down. But we're going to make the suites nicer. We're going to put a new scoreboard on. We'll make the grass better. Like, we can still kind of squeeze some more juice out of this location. We don't need to tear it down. It's still a beautiful stadium. I think when I drive, past it and I just see the curvature of how that stadium kind of wraps around, it's beautiful. I love the outside, the horses and the fountains and the statues.
Yep.
I don't see any reason to tear it down. So when the Penner Group took over, that was kind of, people were saying they wanted a new stadium, but I kind of didn't think we needed a new stadium. Did you feel like that too?
I was kind of on the fence about it. As long if they're going to build a new stadium, it still has to be downtown. Don't put it out by the airport or out in the boonies somewhere. It's got to be downtown.
Yeah, especially with how good the light rail transportation is. The fact that I could land in Denver, catch a ticket, and it'll take me directly in front of the stadium. It's just, it wouldn't make sense to move it.
Yeah, I agree.
So you felt like the Walter Penner Group, when they got, when they won the bidding, you were really happy about that decision. Is there anything you would like to see from them in the next couple of years? Because of course you mentioned Pat Bowlen leaving kind of left a really big hole, and that's why we haven't been to the postseason in 10 years, and it's been really rough. It's easy to feel like right now, like we're coming out of it. We have Sean Payton. He drafted his guy. We have an owner group in place. But the thing is,
a very invested ownership group.
Very invested.
Their business. They want to win, and so I mean, who doesn't? But anyway,
they don't want to be the guys that took over a team and that continue to suck. Because at the time when they took it over, it was like, oh, Denver has an owner now they can start winning. And last year, I mean, you could see there's a lot of pressure. You could kind of feel the uneasiness. They're not like those type of owners that are just, they don't care whether they win or lose. They own the team. That's all that matters. Like you could tell that there was a lot of people that were a little anxious when last season was going wrong. I was at that game in Miami where they scored 70 points. And that was just...
You had to bring that up, did you?
I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought we hit rock bottom, and then you just keep going lower. So although I'm really optimistic this year, and I think I like the direction they're headed, I feel like this every offseason. I think that's part of being a fan.
Absolutely.
But do you think there's do you think that aside from, the optimism, that there's real reason to believe that Denver's going to get back to their winning ways this year?
Yeah, I do. I if they can at least get over 500, I'll be happy, because that shows progress. Over last year. So I'd be happy with a 500 record, honestly.
I've been saying Sean Payton's floor to me is about 9 wins, or 9 or 8 wins. I mean, what he has shown us, the last year he was with the Saints, he had 3 quarterbacks. Drew Brees was gone. He was still playing for a playoff game week 8 or week 17 at the time. And then last year with Russell Wilson and things going about as bad as you could, get, he still found a way to, I think he's just that good of a coach, where it's like, we're not going like Mike Tomlin with the Steelers. It doesn't really matter what they have. They're going to have a winning season by 1 game, and I think that's kind of where we're at right now. And it just all depends on how quick Bo Nix, is going to take to Sean Payton's coaching and how fast he's going to develop.
Yeah, and see how well he does in Payton's system too.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Chargers. The Chargers bring in Jim Harbaugh as their new coach, somebody that we were targeting before Sean Payton came. Now our division, has Andy Reid, Sean Payton, and Jim Harbaugh. I mean, it'd be hard for you to find a better coaching division in the NFL.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean,
yeah, how do you feel
Harbaugh's
about this division right now?
It's going to be tough. I mean, Harbaugh has won everywhere he's been. Andy Reid has won everywhere he's been. God, who's the Raiders coach again?
The Giants.
Brian Daboll. Is that it?
No. He played for the Giants and Antonio Pierce.
Oh, that's right. And he's a good coach too.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
This division is stacked, and everybody's going to be black and blue by the end of the season. And I just, like I said, give me 500, and I'm happy.
Did you besides Bo Nix like any of the other draft picks? They brought in Troy Franklin, Bo Nix's number 1 receiver from Oregon. Audric Estime, the running back out of Notre Dame, who's built like a linebacker. I don't know if you saw this guy.
Yeah. He's going to be a bulldozer. So I'm the Franklin and Estime both. I'd never heard of them before, but once I read up on them, I'm like, wow, yeah, cool.
Yeah. That's how the draft goes all the time for me. I'm like, who is this guy? To put it in YouTube, watch his highlights. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you look at, I mean, you said that the greatest game you saw was the 77 AFC Championship game because how much, you hate the Raiders, and that's a normal thing for Broncos. But with what's kind of happened here with, the second dynasty in my lifetime, the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, where do you rank kind of your disdain for AFC West opponents right now, and are the Chiefs kind of moving their way up in any way with the success that they're having?
I'll make it easy. I hate them all.
Okay. And the Chargers too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Most of the time I just feel sorry for the Chargers, but
right. No, that's why it's different with the Chargers. It's like, well, they're not a threat, but sure, I don't like them.
Exactly.
And the Raiders have had our number for the last 4 years, and it doesn't make any sense.
I know.
At all. They're not even good right now.
Yeah. Because we were worse.
Yeah, well, we need to figure out how to beat the Raiders. Our fan base needs that. I was at the Raiders game week 1 last year, and I was like, there's no way we're going to lose this game. Sean Payton is the coach. I was like, all we need to do is score more than 16 points, and we're going to win most of our games this year. And I go to this week 1 game, and they score 16 points, just like the year before with Nathaniel Hackett. And I was like, oh, my God, it's like, what is it?
And for me, we don't bring up that name.
The N-word
name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. NH. No, we don't talk about that. That never happened.
Okay. It didn't happen.
At least I wish it hadn't.
Well, the media is going to remind us it happened September 29th when the Broncos played the Jets last year. That happened, and the Jets came to Denver, and of course we didn't get the win in that game, but there was no Aaron Rodgers, which even hurts more when Zach Wilson was a quarterback. Looking at the schedule after that Jets game, we play the Raiders for the first time. And then the Chargers, so a little AFC West action for the first time coming in October, the beginning. And then Thursday night, we play Sean Payton's old team in the Saints. That's primetime football. I'm excited for that game as well. Are you excited for the Broncos-Saints game this year?
Yeah. I want to see how he's going to be received.
That's what I'm excited for. Yeah. And somebody brought up a good point where he's like, all the Saints fans have been like, oh, you're going to love Sean Payton. It's not like Seattle fans when we got Russ. They were like, oh, they wished us ill. They were constantly trolling on the social media, spaces. Whereas the Saints fans I think he's going to be received well. I think he's going to, be cheered for because they don't seem to have any resentment, against Sean Payton.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. So,
and then, you got the Panthers, and now we're in November. So the Panthers winnable game. I think the Saints is winnable too. But then you play the Ravens, the Chiefs, back-to-back weeks. That could be a little challenging, to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the Falcons, and then the Raiders again. The Browns, now we're in December. Browns, Colts. Colts could be, I think the Browns are going to be really difficult. I think the Colts are going to be better. The Chargers are going to be good again, and then the Bengals and then the Chiefs. So I know you said 500 is a good season. I would agree, especially looking at the opponents. The NFL strength of schedule is normally garbage. They take the wins, losses from last year, and they say, oh, but the Jets are not going to be what they were last year if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. So it's kind of a sloppy way, especially when there's like 40-45% roster turnover any given year. I think the only way to do it is to really know what these teams look like and look at it. And I don't care what the strength of schedule says. I think this is a difficult schedule. I don't see a bunch of kind of softball games. Even the Saints game has this revenge undertone to it, so you can't say that's an easy game. I'll say the Panthers is like that one game, but they're going to have to be ready every single week, and it's going to be a tough season. If you could go to any game this year, which game would you want to go to?
Oh, it would have to be the Raider game.
The Raider?
Yep.
Yeah, and man, we need that one after what happened week 1 last year.
Yep.
That was humiliating. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yep.
I think Josh McDaniels was the coach too, so that was even a double revenge thing for us. Yeah. What did you think of we got about 12 minutes. What did you think about Tim Tebow and his time with the Broncos? Was that 2010 season as fun for you as it was for me?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He wasn't a great football player. We couldn't throw the ball really well, but hitting that slant to Demarius for the touchdown, I just in the playoff game was just, mile high magic.
Yeah. Yeah, that I remember exactly where I was when that play happened, and I ran outside and I was screaming. Man, it was such a time to be alive. And we went to the same high school as Tim Tebow in Jacksonville, Florida. He went to Nice. So we grew up, knowing Tim Tebow was going to be, good, but we didn't know how good. Then his first year with Florida, he was the backup to Chris Leak. And that was still a really talented team. I think they went on to a national championship. And then when Tebow was drafted to Denver, I was like, holy crap, I never thought. I mean, I've gotten to meet him like at least 4 or 5 separate times, sometimes at church events, sometimes on the sideline of Pop Warner games that he would come and show up for, sometimes on the sideline of, a Nice high school football game where he would come back from Gainesville for the big rivalry game. And just to think that this guy was going to be the Denver Broncos quarterback, I mean, it's just such a like full circle moment. But of course that didn't work out. And then we got Peyton Manning. So it totally worked out. Yeah. When you look back on the Manning years, what was your favorite year? Was it 2013 or would you say, of course, 2015 because we won the Super Bowl?
2013 because of the records he set.
Yeah.
But 2015 because of the Super Bowl. Definitely.
Yeah, I 2013 was definitely a really fun, like the fact that they won the Super Bowl in 2015, it was the most unlikely of all, of the seasons for them to do it with Brock Osweiler, helping us get there. But yeah, was there anything that you were prepared to answer that I didn't ask or anything like that?
Not really, that I can think of. By the way, Peyton Manning still lives here. I actually saw him when my daughter was at a soccer game. Saw him. He was there because his daughter was on my daughter's team.
Really?
And he was sitting there. He was kind of, looking at his phone, had a hat on. I was going to go over and say hi. I'm like, I'm going to leave him be.
Yeah.
Let him have his privacy. So
yeah, you could read the vibe, the hat,
Yeah, people were taking pictures of him from afar, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. That's not who I am.
Yeah,
leave them alone.
You just gotta let them. I'm the same way. I remember one time I lived in Miami for 6 or 7 years, and Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union were eating breakfast right next to me, and I was just like, "All right, I'm just gonna just be normal,"
Yep.
They appreciate that too.
Yeah, because they're people just like us.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to watch his daughter just like you're trying to watch your daughter,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I can think of from all the time that we had the tickets, and I can't come up with anything else, honestly.
Well, I think Brandon Stokely still lives in Denver too.
Yeah, he does. He's does a radio show here.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw something about Brandon Stokely. I think his son is about to play college football or something, and they had like a party for him, and Peyton Manning showed up. So like Peyton Manning's a full on, like he's Coloradoan, like full and
he and Stokely are big friends together. They play golf together a lot. I had something else that I just thought of, and I know I can't remember it. Dang it. Oh, Champ Bailey still lives here. TD still lives here. God, so many of them. So many. Yeah, they came to Denver and decided to stay.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place to live.
It is. It is.
And they probably live. Do they probably live out in the mountains, not in Denver, right?
Most of them do live in Denver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's an area called Cherry Hills that's very upscale. I know that's where Elway lives, Manning lives. I don't remember who else lives there. But yeah, they live in the city.
That's a good feeling, not for Colts fans, but for Broncos.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we put a Peyton Manning statue outside of our stadium before the Colts did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean,
Denver's better.
Yeah, and plus you got to really look at what he did. Like the NFL has become so. I mean, they had the Legion of Boom in Seattle, and then Denver had the no-fly zone. I mean, these were the last like elite defenses. I mean, they're still good defenses. The Browns were good last year, but Tom Brady was just talking about that attitude, the ability to like, don't throw the football over the middle because you're going to lose your receiver for the rest of the game if you do that, because we're going to knock him out. Like that is kind of fading away, and it's more like, okay, how many points can you score? Because that's good for our numbers. And still no one's thrown 55 touchdown passes in a single season since Manning did that in 2013 when there was still a lot of violence in the game.
Yep. There was.
Yeah, I think when you really look at that 2013 season, I still think that's probably, and of course I'm biased, the greatest. Well, this isn't biased. That is the greatest offense I have ever seen in my life. Like that team was scoring 40 points on a weekly basis.
Yep.
And they opened up the season throwing 7 touchdown passes against the Ravens, who beat them in 2012. That was the worst game of my life. That Hail Mary BS at the end of that game.
Oh God, I'm still sick
about it.
Oh, tell me about it. Oh, that was
And
the
then they
worst.
go on to win the Super Bowl, which is like, okay, well, if it's,
Yeah.
if the Hail Mary doesn't go through, then it tells me that maybe we win 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, go to 3. And,
Mhm.
I think the dynasty that Denver was in those 4 years gets even more of the credit that it deserves. But because of that
Yep.
random play at the end of the game,
Yep.
but it was cool seeing that revenge game week 1 and Manning throws 7 touchdown passes.
Yep.
That was much needed game for Broncos country.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Cleansing the palate, as it were.
Yes, that is the word. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on and telling your stories about,
Of course.
the season tickets you had from 1977 to 1996. And it is a little funny that the one year you didn't renew them, they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Maybe not funny for you, but in
Well,
hindsight, it's a little
yeah,
fun.
it is. You can laugh at it a couple decades from now.
Okay. But yeah, that was really cool to get. You're our first guy in Denver, in Colorado that we've had. Bronco fans are all over the world and they're excited to do it. But you're our first guy that's got boots on the ground, and you know what's going on in the city, and the vibes, the energy, everything's really good and optimistic in Denver right now.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this is I'll send you a link to the this interview when it's done if you want to check it out. And
Okay.
we did really good. We had the most people watching live in this interview than we've had in any of our other interviews. So that's probably a
Wow.
testament to how cool your stories are.
Wow.
And yeah, bringing somebody in that's had season tickets since 1977, that's kind of unique. So thank you for coming on here, and hopefully we could maybe do this again down the road, during the season or something.
Absolutely. I would love to. That would be
Awesome. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Interviewing Broncos Country. See you guys.
Thanks.